everybody, and welcome back to my podcast. I am Meg Schmitz, and this is The Free Agent. Today, my guest is Rob Krieghoff, and in a minute, I will let Rob tell you all about himself, and we'll begin the conversation. Thanks for joining me today, Rob. As an overview, the podcast is all about free agency and taking control over your future. The mission of my show is to share inspiring conversations with real people who took the leap into self-employment, business ownership, franchising sometimes, and freedom, really. From corporate refugees and executives tired of the job to entrepreneurs and investors looking to share camaraderie and an inspiration through their business journey, the podcast aims a spotlight on real people who have stepped away into the unknown, took control of their destiny, and became their own boss. These are conversations that don't usually pop up in cocktail parties or at the office, but there are a lot of us who, as business owners, are dealing with free agent experiences. Sometimes those are great, sometimes they're challenging. Last year in particular, 2020 really threw all of us a curveball. So this is honest conversation about what it's like to own your own business in this day and age. And so, Rob, welcome to the show. Rob, I have known you now for a number of years, and through different iterations of your professional career, much of which you have been a free agent. And so, why don't you set the stage for the listeners about who you are and what your background and experiences have been over the last 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Thanks again, Meg. So we actually originally met when I was actually in the financial services business. I did that for a couple of years. Wish I had done that when I was younger, because I have kids getting ready to go to college fairly soon. So that's when we first met. But I've been in the TV business for about 28 years now, and it's essentially the digital and TV ad business. I manage sales departments. Hired and trained a bunch of salespeople. I think at one point I had 14 salespeople I was responsible for. So I did the corporate dance, and then I got out of the business for a bit. Met you when I was doing financial services, and then got back into media when a local station here gave me a great opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And as I did that, my wife's real estate practice, which she had started back in 2012, had started to take off. So I sort of switched gears, got myself licensed as a real estate agent, and have been helping her for the last 4 years now. Just sort of cover her clients. When she can't get something done, I can jump out and help do that for her, because real estate is a lot of nights and weekends. So it kind of works around what used to be my 8 to 5. That's, I think, changed for a lot of people right now. And that's kind of where we're at now. We've got obviously real estate's done quite well. One of the businesses that did quite well during the pandemic, and so it's been a very busy year. This year is off to a tremendous start on that front, and I'm working from home from as far as media goes. So I've got quite a bit of flexibility, which is helpful.
It has been a great year for you, and just thinking back to when we first met, that was in the monthly group of business owners that met in Wauwatosa, and one of the elements that I remember from your presentation was working with business owners to present opportunities for employees that would give them essentially golden handcuffs in keeping an employee. So you have worked with employers, you've worked with entrepreneurs over the last few years. Have you noticed particular changes in how business owners are engaging with their employees?
Yeah, I mean, it's, part of it is, obviously these last few years, it's been a very competitive job market. It's interesting now because I think the market now potentially offers more opportunity to find good people, because there's been, unfortunately, quite a few people that have been, that are out of work now during the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, the value of good employees is paramount. And, that was one of the things that drove me to the financial services business for a couple of years. Is I've spent in the 28 years I've been in media, I've largely spent with small business owners, and I've been lucky enough to work with most, small to mid-sized businesses in the state of Wisconsin at some point when it comes to TV. And so I've learned a lot from these people. They're really, really smart people. And, the one sort of consistent factor for small business owners is if you've got a good team, you've got good internal processes. And what you do, Meg, is your franchise model allows either those that don't have experience owning businesses or those that are looking to do more. That franchise model sort of gives you a roadmap for quicker success. But those that are most successful are those that have the right internal processes and the right people. And those that don't, there's, in the media world, when it comes to helping a business owner drive, say leads to their business, I can drive traffic to a website. I can drive traffic to a phone number. I can drive traffic to a brick and mortar. But if you can't close the deal, there's nothing I can really do for you. And we still run into that pretty often. There are quite a few business owners, and we talk about it a lot in your group, Meg, that they spend more time working in their business instead of on their business. Yeah. And so I try to come up with, with the experience I have in the media biz in particular, solutions and ideas to help them, maximize the value of the leads that they get. And I can, in some cases I dive in and do a little bit more work than others. And then there's others. I had a recent client where there's not much I can do for them. As much as I'd like to, there's some internal challenges there. And, that's something that business owner has got to face. And in those cases, you're actually better just kind of walking away. So, but I think that pre-pandemic, these last 3 or 4 years before the pandemic, I think the value of good people it was paramount.
Great perspective that you have picked up in working with these small business owners, and absolutely correct. Sometimes you just need to let a client go or fire the client. I hate to put it that way, but sometimes in order to advance your own business and not spin your wheels, you have to let people who can't get out of their way go, which kind of prompts a question for me, and that is, have you hired a business coach or mentor in the past, or have you learned along the way best practices in interacting with business owners who do stumble?
It's funny you say that. I actually did a few years ago when I was doing financial services. I actually hired a coach because a lot of the successful advisors out there have coaches, and she helped. I mean, it was a little bit too maybe sort of elementary for me based on where I was in my career is what she was able to offer. But what's interesting is that the networking I've done, I've been able to really sort of glean a lot from the business coaches that are in your group and in a couple of the other networking groups that I'm involved in. I try to be pretty specific about where I network. That's just an experience thing as well. But that's actually an idea that Amy and I might potentially look at going forward to go to the next level, is to have a coach help us with a few things as we build this practice out. Because there's as a small business owner, especially as in Amy's business where we're sort of essentially 1099s, you still get bogged down with a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the sort of behind the scenes stuff that doesn't really it makes you the money, but you got to do it. And so we're looking to potentially fill that need probably in the next year. But yeah, coaches they're such a huge factor, and they help keep you honest and help keep you on track for whatever your goals are. And I think at this point, I've been able to network with enough right people that I'm constantly reminded of what I need to be doing. It's a big benefit, I will say.
I was part of a networking meeting yesterday morning, and the premise of the conversation was, think about your desk and what is on it. And if you could clear off your desk all the things that are distracting, they keep you from focusing, what are some of the things that we would offload in our business so that we can, to your point, we can really focus. And it is interesting in Milwaukee in particular, there's so many great networking opportunities. You do have to pick and choose. Are there any particular strategies that you use to determine where you are today, which networking opportunities are going to be the most beneficial or productive for you?
Yeah, I think when you do that, the first thing you have to do is you have to go in and you have to be willing to give. So, it's really all about, networking is being willing to give. It's you can't go into it from the perspective of what am I going to get out of it? I used to do that years ago, and the experience has sort of taught me that. I remember at one point when you and I first connected, Megan, you were building this group. I loved the way you were trying to build it and try to be truly a resource to people. And, good networking is patience, it's learning from one another. It's funny from like the media perspective, from this group, your group, I haven't really gotten much out of it. And that's not really the point, because every time I sit down with your particular group, I always learn something. Like one of the fascinating pieces to what your group does is you guys, you're talking about business, you're talking about corporate folks who's never owned a business jumping into a business model. So they're fascinating discussions. It's stuff I've been hearing for years from business owners who've actually built their business from the ground up, which might be a little bit different. So no, I think, I think overall, networking is being willing to give, being patient. And if you attend a handful of meetings and you see something that might look awry, maybe you've got some people that are more interested in getting something from you, but not giving you something, then perhaps, you might want to look elsewhere. I've done a ton of it in the last, I'd say probably 10 years, in your group. And then I do a group through the Metropolitan Builders Association, are the only two I still do, because
interesting.
The others just, I've done a lot of B&Is. Some people have had luck with B&Is. I personally haven't. There's another group I was involved in for a while. And at one point, I think the guy that was putting the group together says to me, well, I'll give you the lead when he's ready to let me give you the lead. And I was like, if you can't just do a quick intro, then I think we're kind of missing the point here. So I think you've got to sort of find out what's best for you and sort of common sense. But I just always tell people, when you go into it, you've got to be willing to give and be patient. And if you see that from others in the group, then you're probably in the right group.
I think the most electric part of the First Friday group, now that we've gone virtual, is you don't have to wait until the end of the meeting to get a business card or have a sidebar conversation. You hit the chat feature, private chat, and it cracks me up when I'm ready to call on people to say who they are, what they do, and what is their ask for this month. And they write me back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing a sidebar conversation with Rob or with Julie about insurance. I'll be right back. It's like, this is so awesome, because people are connecting in the moment and getting real answers to real problems that they're trying to solve or real opportunities that they're trying to create. So to me, the real benefit of the group is, to your point, it's the giver attitude, the giver contributions that people make freely. There's no charge to the group. Everyone participates because they want to and they're getting something out of it. And it's very rewarding just to sit back and see the chat feature going crazy with certain exchanges. It's very gratifying. So thank you for the commentary there.
Sure.
When Amy started in real estate, was that a shift from a job that she had and this became an interest that then was a profession?
Yeah, she was actually in media too for many years. She was a sales manager. Her last stint was a 14-year stretch with the Sinclair stations here in Milwaukee, which is channels 18 and 24. Some people remember it as Super 18 for those that are Milwaukee folks. And yeah, she actually worked in a real estate office when she was in high school, and I think for a stint in college. So she always had an interest in it. She said that she was about to get licensed in the early 2000s when she was getting tired of the sort of corporate rat race with TV, but didn't. And then when we were, so we got married in 2012. And as we were starting to blend, we have a blended family. As we were starting to, sort of combine forces, she had an opportunity to get out and really try to give real estate a shot. And so she did. And I always kind of tell her now, it's unfortunate she didn't do it sooner, because she would have been probably even more successful. But if we go back to the old sort of standard Webster's dictionary, there's a picture of a real estate agent in there. It's her. She's really exceptional at what she does. Real estate's all about details. It's one thing to put a deal together. It's another thing to get it to closing. That's the hardest part. And she's a full service agent. So she works for a full service broker. It absolutely is. You pay, what you buy is what you get, especially in a market like it is right now. So yeah, she's been just toiling away. I think at one point there was a 6-month window where she didn't get a paycheck. So she's gone through the rigors of that, but she had a record year last year. And from my perspective, and she understands this too, because she worked with small business owners, people just don't understand how hard it is to be a small business owner. I mean, there's been a lot of talk in this last year politically about it. And obviously a lot of our political talking heads pretend that they care about small businesses when they don't. There are people just, if you've never owned a business, you have absolutely no idea what it's like. It's such a hard thing to do. And mad respect times 10 for people that build businesses, whether it's a franchise or you build it from the ground up. It's such a you're jumping off a cliff. I mean, you're putting your whole kit and caboodle into it. And I just think people should give people that are successful doing it more respect, because it's just so hard. And so that's been kind of fun to see that on her side is her growth and her turning something into nothing. And the other thing too, last thought about this, Meg, is
turning nothing into something. The other way around.
Sorry. Nothing into something, but she's not from here. So a lot of people, a lot of the agents she works with, she's out of the First Weber Brookfield office. A lot of those people are from here. There's a huge team out of that office that he's a super successful guy, but his mom started his business, and he's taken it to another level. And we can always talk about, you can have people that are really good at building a business, and you can have somebody else come in that might be really good or even better at taking it to the next level. So everybody's got their expertise, and it's not to knock any of those people that are from this area, but she's not from here. So that's I think what's been really rewarding for her is that she's really sort of she's from Detroit, so she's not a Wisconsinite.
It is an interesting trait about entrepreneurial minded people that we're terriers. We don't give up. We chase it. We wrestle to the ground until we win, and it does take a lot of staying power. Was there ever a point with you and Amy where you had that holy smokes moment, like we're really flying out here and there isn't a net, so we've got to figure out how to fly? So were there ever scary moments in there where you were like, oh, holy crap?
There absolutely was. There were a few moments. I remember a few times where she's like, maybe I should try to get another job in the meantime. And that was a little scary. And then when I was doing financial services, I mean, I had, sort of a small contract with a company, but nothing compared to what I had been making in the media biz. And part of my foray into the financial services was just, I had gotten burnt out of media. But no, there have been more than a handful of those times. And, to her credit, she stuck with it. Number one. Number two, she did have the means. She had some money saved, had been smart with her money before she got out of media. So that was a big help for her too. And because, I think a lot of times businesses that fail, unfortunately don't, they only have so much resources available to them and then they run out. And fortunately she had enough to kind of get her through it. But oh, absolutely. And I think every small business owner runs into that at some point. It's interesting on the media side. I used to say this to the salespeople I used to train all the time. It's the same thing in sales. Even though you're working for somebody, you still have to figure it out. You can get a training system and all of that, but your style and your personality makes you unique from anybody else. And in any sort of opportunity where you have, maybe not necessarily unlimited income potential, but an opportunity to make a lot of money, you I think you cross that bridge at some point where you've got to figure it out on your own. And yeah, it's been a few years since she had that. But I do remember those. It was probably after that 6-month stretch where she hadn't gotten a paycheck.
Yeah, those stretches make you doubt your strengths and capabilities. In the past, I have been nicknamed the Queen of Inconsistency. And I don't know about you and Amy, but it takes a long time to build your business into something that is self-sustaining, say as a referral only model. Until you can become referral only, you've got to fight for every lead that you get. And so that inconsistency does seem to go away once you build into some successes. But for you and Amy, your team Krieghoff, were there months there at the beginning of 2020 where people ran with hair on fire and nothing was happening, and then it came back again?
It did, and it's funny. We were just on our call for the First Weber Awards for the year, and the top team out of the First Weber office in Brookfield, which is a pretty well-known team. Anybody in real estate probably knows who they are. And he's a super dude. he actually had a moment in early April where he was in the office of the manager there, who's one of the really better known sales managers in the real estate world. Just the guy's an encyclopedia, where he thought he was done. I mean, that's how scary it was for people because everything was shut down, right? And it was same for AIM. So it was about a 6-week window where it was just really, really quiet. And then all of a sudden it exploded, and it just became something that, she had a record year the year before, and then this took her to the next level. Now, she had added a builder relationship, which has been a huge help for her. And, it's interesting when you look at a lot of the successful agents over the years, a lot of times they have those kind of relationships that help sort of springboard them. So we're trying to build off of that because a lot of times you can get listings out of it, and it's a great way to promote your name. But, it's interesting. You just made a really good point, Megan. It's just, I want to go back to it for a second, which is, when you're sort of an independent business person, obviously you've got your business. And if I was doing my media consulting or with Amy, with a real estate or our team, is a lot of times you spend a lot of time cultivating business, and then you've got to run and handle the business. And so it's really important to have systems in place on the back end to keep the pipeline full. And it's like the biggest challenge with sort of independent, smaller business owners, especially if you don't have a lot of employees. We actually have one other team member on our team, but is keeping the pipeline full. That's a hard thing to do. And it's actually one of the discussion points I have in a lot of the networking groups I'm in. There's a PR guy in my MBA group that will get some business. He runs with it, and then all of a sudden he's done with the business and he's got nothing in the pipeline because he's got either no system to fill it or he's got nobody to help him do it. And that's hard. That's a tricky piece, and that's something we've tried to get better at. We have gotten better at, but we're still not perfect on that front yet either.
Yeah, the time management piece and understanding how you best monetize, because none of us get into business to not make money. We're doing that. I mean, unless you're retired and it's sort of a hobby business, married in a hobby business. But otherwise, we're getting into business to monetize it and make good money, live off of this thing. So it's very important. And again, going back to a coach perhaps or other accountability mechanisms that help to keep the focus on what is truly rewarding and sustainable. Because to your point, once that contract runs out or that payday hits, I think that's where a lot of people who struggle then get depressed or knocked off their game because they don't have that next project on the horizon. And hard to do that unless you really know what mechanisms work to keep that pipeline full. Yep. So for you and Amy, or individually, were there particular challenges to building the business last year versus starting from scratch? Were there, for you in your consulting, or Amy with the real estate, were there challenges as you got into the second half of 2020, or was it really much easier?
It was, it was fairly consistent for the year. And I think some industries were sort of benefited from it to not to try to be, crude about it. But I mean, so on the media side, a lot of advertisers needed to get the messaging out that they were, COVID safe and socially distant and doing virtual meetings. And so that sort of helped on that side of it. And the media side, there were a lot of clients that had to do that. And then we ran into obviously the fall, which was a political time, which I didn't have anything to do with, and I would never want to have anything to do with it. I managed that years ago. That's a brutal thing. But for Amy, it was probably like early May as we were approaching potentially opening back up. It just was steady, and then it was steady through the rest of the year. And what's been interesting was it kind of slowed down. Usually slows down around the holidays, and it did. And then at the beginning of this year, it's like they turned a switch. We have a buyer we're working with. I'll give you an example. We actually got them an accepted offer on a home in early December. There was only 2 offers on the home. They were the one that won, and they wrote 5,000 over asking. Well, fast forward 6 weeks later, because that deal fell apart. There was an issue with the basement. They were a little gun shy, which kind of wish they weren't. because now we can't find them a house, but because they're in a really popular price point. But 6 weeks later, we had done a deal with them, put them in for a house on the south side of Milwaukee that was priced around $200,000. They got 41 offers.
Oh my gosh.
So in a matter of 6 weeks, you went from 2 offers to 41. So now that's going to shake out a little bit because, people are really, I think COVID pushed a lot of people out. And you kind of go through those ebbs and flows. And it's interesting. We're working with people who have been in real estate for 40 years in the First Weber office. And they're like, they've never seen anything like this. But it's sort of like you've got to just sort of stick with your tried and true strategies and your tried and true principles, because you might think that every single deal is going to be 40 houses, but it's not. And if you follow your regular sort of guidelines as you write offers for clients, or if you're doing listings for clients, continue to follow those, even though the market's crazy right now. Because if you get off of that, which some agents are doing what they're trying to collect offers, which is fine for the seller. But can you imagine sitting down with a seller and going over 41 offers and trying to decipher which one's the best? I mean, that to me seems a little bit, too much. I mean, part of what we've always said in real estate is, buyers and sellers only know what we tell them. And I think we also have a responsibility, to do the best that we can for them, but also to try to keep things within reason. And so the start of this year has been crazy. So to long answer your question, steady. And then, starting of this year, it's just been nuts.
Yeah.
Best way to.
And so just as I'm listening to all this, what's running through my head is you two are the epitome of diversifying and monetizing in different ways through different economic crises, whether it's a recession 2008 to 11. I know that you weren't doing the real estate back then, but still we have these ebbs and flows in our economy. And this is a topic that I'm speaking to more and more is diversify, because job insecurity or business and the economy, they don't always spell success. Mm-hmm. But if you and you and Amy are diversified so that if one is ebbing, the other one is flowing, and you've always got some sort of stability then in your household.
I completely agree with you, Maggie. It's funny. There's always been sort of talks of I think at one point, one of your meetings before COVID, somebody was kidding about side gigs, and everybody was walking around in the meeting saying, well, my side gig. And so, side gigs can be really, really good. I think, you look at it from a perspective of you try to balance the two of them, maximize them the best that you can. We're in our early 50s, so we're in our maximum earning years as we look at it. We've got the benefit of experience. On the real estate side, we don't have to be everything to everybody. We can be a little choosy. And in the media side, I try to do the same thing. Like I said, the one client I was referring to that, I don't think I can do much for that client. 10 years ago, I may have been completely different and been like, I've got to keep this and I've got to make this work. But part of it is it's not doing this person any good if I can't help them. And I just know based on experience that there's some challenges there that I just, they have to figure out.
And it's something that you brought up is so absolutely true. I don't care what industry you're in. Sometimes there's that creative moment, or you're going to make a pivot and you start to veer a little bit off of the trajectory of what works. Mm-hmm. And one of my franchisors at a recent conference said, you're the perceived expert. Your client is paying you for your expertise. Yep. Don't punt. If you're not a punter, don't punt. You need to pivot occasionally, but don't forget what works, because that's really the value proposition of what keeps people referring more people to you is you have a consistent, reliable offering. And from one client to the next, everyone, you want to get 5 stars from everybody.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Meg. I think part of it too is just a matter of, being that resource, being that person that helps them get something done. And in the end, if you're, say, listing a house and dealing with 40 some odd offers, which is just nuts, you just need one. That's all you need. You need one to sell the house, get them what the house is worth. In some of these cases, I think when you vary off of some of your strategies that you've used over the years, if say you're a real estate agent or if you're another business owner, and you're learning to pivot, but you're pivoting. Maybe you're not pivoting without all of the information in front of you. And I might not be saying that correctly. You can find yourself, getting yourself in trouble where it's like you sort of walked away from your principles a little bit.
Yeah.
And you really don't want to do that. It just, I ran into that recently in something that I was dealing with another one of Amy's clients, where it's like, it taught me, it was a really good lesson. It's like, you know what, we do it a certain way and we're going to do it that way. And it doesn't need to be any other way. And if we're talking to a prospective client, they don't like it, then they can go work with somebody else. But we know our way works. And I would just say one other thing on the pivot has been more of, really trying to encourage more and more people, honestly, to be perfectly blunt, to list their house. That's really the pivot.
Yeah.
I know that's been a mantra for 4 or 5 years now in real estate, but it really is that point now. You've got a lot of baby boomers that aren't listing their homes. And if they do, that can help sort of this backlog of all these buyers looking for places to live. So, and we're trying to pivot on how we position that to clients, and how to, encourage them to do that without being too salesy. That's a little tricky, but this environment has offered a better opportunity than usual to do it because there are so many buyers. So,
well, so we're coming up on the end of our time here. If people want to contact you or Amy, we'll also put it in the information that goes out. But do you want to talk about any contact information if people would like to reach out to you, either for your consulting or media or for real estate?
Yeah, if you want, probably the easiest way to go would be you could just send me an email, which is rkrieghoff@firstweber.com. And I'll let you help get the spelling out there for that, Meg. Amy's website is amykrieghoff.firstweber.com. And that has all of her current listings and all great information on real estate and that sort of thing. But yeah, we generally try to do, most of what we do up front as far as consultations doesn't cost anybody anything. We'll give you honest opinion. If you're looking to potentially sell your house, you really want to, there's some things you can do that can boost the value of it without having to do everything. That's a really important conversation. And on the flip side, as far as a buyer goes, do you have a house to sell? Make sure that house is sold. Can you get a bridge loan? Are you a cash buyer? Are you willing to waive some contingencies? There's all sorts of strategies that, we have to do after we, sit down with a client. But you can still find that dream home and still make a killing on your listing and selling your home if you want. You just got to be, partnered with, there's a lot of great real estate agents. We would be happy to help somebody with that. We think we do a pretty good job.
Well, and I've known you over these years and Amy as well. And so what I know about the Midwest is that people like to do business with people they like. Mm-hmm. And you and Amy are as nice as the day is long, and the integrity factor has always been high. And just within our group, the number of people who've trusted you with either buying or selling. So to anyone who's listening, take it from me, Rob and Amy are just great people to do business with. And I thank you so much for being on the show today. And thanks. I look forward to seeing you at the First Friday meeting. As always, you're an amazing, outstanding participant and contributor. And that what you had said at the beginning about giving freely is really so true in networking. So I appreciate all that you do for the group and the folks in Milwaukee, and I will see you tomorrow.